So why don't I go first? It'll probably be quick. I'm sure it'll be quick. So I've been working on this SHF project, the Swedish project. Put in 2 or 3 PRs yesterday. And on Met Plus, I've been reviewing a bunch of PRs, and I created a bunch of stories to increase our test coverage. And on the NHS project that Sam's working with the National Health Service in the UK there, I've been kicking the tires on a couple of wikis that are candidates for their needs. They basically need a wiki to disseminate information internally as well as externally for some big project that they have. And that's pretty much it. Maybe after the Scrum, we can come back to some questions I have for you or some observations you might have on wikis that might be available to us given our needs. But anyway, that's it for me, and no blockers on my part. How about yourself?
Let's see. I spent some time providing some feedback on some of the internship proposals, and worked with one of the prospective interns to finish up and merge a patch that adds support for a new wiki. And so I got that deployed this morning. And then I spent some more time trying to work through that tricks React issue and made some progress. So found out that it was a browser specific bug. It was like after this update, it was no longer calling the on change and other events in Firefox, but it still does work in Chrome. So that's why the other person trying to help me out was like, well, I can't figure out what it might be. It's supposed to work.
Chrome. Yeah, right.
Yep. So that's good. And I also narrowed it down to not actually being like tricks itself. So I actually was able to upgrade to the newest core tricks library while keeping the old version of like the React wrapper. So I think maybe I'll just like stick with that, because I don't think there's any particular reason why the React wrapper is going to cause any problems, since it's currently seems to work just fine until the interface of tricks itself changes and breaks things, which probably will at some point.
Yep.
And yeah, that's it for me. I'm kind of trying to figure out what smaller things I can do in the short term while I'm waiting for a possible contract with Wikimedia to do a couple focused bigger changes like in the next couple weeks. So we'll see about that. And I'm gonna pick a few things from the backlog in the meantime and hack away.
Okay, good. Do you want to go ahead and try this async voter then? And maybe we could put it out there that we're looking to vote on a few stories, and we'd like to close the voting by this time Monday.
That sounds great. Let's try it.
Maybe we'll get more participation that way.
Yeah. So let me see. What's the best way to do this? Maybe we should start on Waffle and move a couple of things into a column that is needs estimate or something.
Yeah.
Or we just start from the top of the backlog, I guess, the Agile Ventures backlog, and put a couple of those in there.
Yeah, I guess we don't need them in this specific column right now. We just need to find candidates that we would like to move forward into the sprint backlog once they're voted on.
Cool. I'm gonna just reorder a couple things really quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Looks like somebody's taken a story in progress since we talked yesterday. I thought we had 6 stories in current sprint, but there's only 5 there now. That's good. that's good. So
What? I wonder what that was.
yeah, I could have sworn there were 6 stories.
Let's see what is closed. Oh, nothing recently.
Well, in any case, current sprint's down now to just, we got 5 stories. So yeah, it'd be good to get a few more in there.
Yeah. All right. So I think that these several on top are good.
On the Agile Ventures backlog?
Yeah. All right. So as you want to take the lead on doing the kicking off that the async stuff as you have time.
Yeah, I can do that. Let me see. So let me just confirm that I've got the right. Bring up my little notepad here. Write it down. So let's see. So you'd like to do 1044? Is that right?
Yep.
1044. Okay, we got that one. 1255. Just the ones. 1254. You want to just go from the top to the bottom? 1200.
Yeah, we should actually estimate 1200 since that was the one that somebody's actually working on, which you added Dan, right?
I did. Yep.
Let's see what's his what's his username? That is Zorganon?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to assign him now, and it does need to be estimated, but I'm also going to put it on in progress.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so I've got 4 stories: 1044, 1255, 1254, and 1200. That sound about right?
Sounds good.
Okay, so in terms of these, this 1044, it says my article button should have info messages explain a sign review. Do you think you need to add any narrative to that story? Because there's nothing other than that title.
I'll do that right now.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, well, not right now, but I'll do that shortly here.
Okay. 1255. Admin search for users by real name. Yeah, I think 1255 could take a couple sentences there as well to explain that.
Okay.
/ users versus real name. Not sure what that means, but 1254, backfilling data for previous events. Commons uploads are not. Commons uploads or common import uploads?
Commons uploads, that's the it goes up in the uploads tab
okay.
Of a query.
Okay, so 1254 probably has enough information in it to figure that out. You could always add more, but that's probably a good starting point there. In 1200, you've already walked Dan through it?
That's right.
Yep. So we're okay there. Okay, well, let's try async voting on this 4 then. See how it goes, and I'll ask people to vote by Monday this time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, good. That'll give us a little bit more of a backlog to work with. Cool. So, by the way, so we're looking at these wikis to be used by the National Health Service in a program they have for, they call it social prescribing and self-care. Social prescribing really comes from the fact that doctors prescribe medicine, but they don't necessarily prescribe right now social activities that would help people get better. Mm-hmm. That includes volunteering contributions, interactions with people, with getting involved with civic groups, whatever. But this whole movement afoot to do social prescribing and have doctors and nurses and medical professionals become much more attuned to that, so they help steer people toward things that can help them with their mental health and, by extension, their physical health. Mm-hmm. So we've been looking at a bunch of wikis, and so one of the ones that I was looking at that I thought looked pretty interesting was Blue Spice for MediaWiki. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
So this is like a MediaWiki plugin?
Well, it looks like an overlay on MediaWiki, and they call it Blue because I think it was commissioned initially by IBM. I think IBM didn't move forward with it, but there's a company in Germany that now has a version of it. It's open source. They also have a hosted version that's a little bit more functionality. But it sounds like you've never heard of that, huh?
No.
Okay.
Let me see. I'm trying to look for the source code because I'm just curious of like how out of date a version of MediaWiki it is.
Yeah.
Because they don't. It's just like you just download it. They don't.
You can download it. Yeah, they don't. They're not really. I don't think they want you to download the free version.
Yeah.
They want you to hook up with this.
See.
So Sam said they do have a demo site that you can play with on their website. He said it was very Wikipedia type in terms of its interface for editing and content creation, which he thought might be a little bit off-putting for the users we're going to have, who are supposedly really, really busy and will not take the time nor have time to learn any nuances of a system that presents any learning obstacles to them. So, but anyway, I just thought I'd see if you knew anything about that.
No, I don't. It looks like it's at this point one release, one major version behind, which is not too bad.
They seem to do 2 upgrades a year on the hosted.
Oh, it happens to be the long-term service one, so that's a pretty reasonable, like, at least that's not a huge red flag.
Okay, good. Yeah, it seems to be well maintained. They seem to know what they're doing on the hosted side. Do you, aside from, given that you're in the, to some degree, wiki business, do you know of any other wikis that might be worth looking at for, not your typical open source, quite open and riddled with gaps in terms of access control and all that? We're looking for enterprise class type stuff.
Yeah, I don't really. I don't have a lot of experience with wikis. Like, I know that, like, the Confluence one is supposed to be kind of all right for that. Like, I think you can set it up pretty easily so that it's like private by default, and then you can make specific pages public, which is probably more or less the kind of thing that they want to do. But it's not very pretty, not very good, I would say. Like from an end user perspective of someone like trying to, access information from it. I guess the big question I would have would be like what the scope of, like, how much content do they think they're going to need to manage with this?
That's a good question. I don't know. Sam's the one, of course, has been meeting with them in London. I get the impression it could be quite significant because they want to engage in content development internally, and then they want to communicate it out to providers as well as the community at large across Britain at some point.
So they think that, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess what I feel like needs justification is what is like the choice of a wiki in the first place. Like, and that depends a lot on what they imagine as sort of the structure and scale of the content that they want to develop, and like what the process for developing that is. Because, and the reason I say that is because, like, if it's, you know, a moderately big amount of content, like they're developing like a really full-fledged sort of like FAQ or manual or handbook of how to deal with like a fairly circumscribed set of things, and they like expect people to come in sort of through a certain funnel or certain path and then find the information from there, then maybe a wiki is not the right way to go. Maybe like, you know, like WordPress can actually be really great for that. If you find the right plugins, and like from a user experience of like people developing the content, if it's like mostly like one or a small number of people collaborating on each like new piece of content, then like the WordPress editing interface is more accessible for a newcomer, gives all the flexibility that you want to sort of like make it look the way you want on each individual page and like go from there. Whereas like MediaWiki and like most other wikis that I'm like aware of, although I've never done like a really full-fledged sort of search through the, you know, the wiki universe of what's available, but like MediaWiki itself and like the whole concept of you know, a MediaWiki like wiki really lends itself to like a free-form network of knowledge, right? Like not where you have sort of a starting point and you know, answer some questions and in depth at the article that is like addressing your specific issue, but more like you can jump from place to place and like having interconnectedness there that is like able to build out sort of organically. Like that's where a wiki makes sense. And like if it's going to be enough content and that's the way that you expect people to engage with it, then I think there's a big advantage to using something that like from a user perspective feels a little bit like Wikipedia, because then if they already understand how to use Wikipedia, like as a reader, then it instantly clicks and they don't sort of like spend all that time like figuring out, well, do I really even want to try to read any of this in the first place? And also it's like great for like long-term open-ended collaboration and sort of incremental content development. But it does have the learning curve of like getting up and running with it. And if you're only going to do like, you know, a medium to small number of like pages, like, you know, in the hundreds or less, then it's probably overkill. And especially if it's like you're going to develop a piece and then it's going to more or less be done and move on to the next thing that you're developing, then like maybe you don't want a wiki at all. Or maybe you do. I don't know. I mean, I think like using a wiki is something that like a lot of people I think jump to too soon. And it's like not the right solution for a lot of like collaborative content development and like content hosting problems. Like it can be used for all that stuff. It's really flexible, but it's probably not the ideal for a lot of things.
Okay.
Is that helpful perspective at all, or?
I think so. I think we're looking for wiki because Sam's interpretation, their interpretation of their needs is a wiki. They do have collaborative content development in mind, both internally and with the so-called commissioners, as well as with the providers in the community. And so this is the idea of posting things out, getting comments back, incorporating those, cycling through changes, etc. So obviously,
and I mean,
wiki springs
like
to mind.
there are wiki-like plugins that basically like add some of that similar functionality to WordPress, right? Like you can make WordPress behave like a wiki. And like there are other things that are not in fact wikis, but are very much like wikis.
Well, the other thing that's missing that I didn't tell you is they have various roles. So they want certain people to be content creators, certain people readers and commenters. They want some people to form a moderation group of people who will moderate comments, be aware when comments come in, automatically be alerted, review those.
See, this sounds more and more like WordPress's bailiwick.
Shut out disruptive people, that kind of thing. So so WordPress can do all of that stuff too?
I mean, if you get the right plugins for it. I mean, content moderation and roles is something that definitely WordPress has a lot more support of out of the box than MediaWiki. I mean, there are roles in MediaWiki, but there isn't even a concept of comments, right? In MediaWiki, you can post to the talk page, but that's actually a huge barrier to entry for someone who you just want their feedback from.
Yep.
Talk pages are from a sort of user design perspective, they're power user tools that are intended for people who are actually collaborating on also editing the article itself.
Yep.
And if you want to get approve comments before they're made, you can't do that at all with moderation is only after the fact. You can remove malicious things and block the people. But in terms of curating a conversation around something and actively soliciting feedback, MediaWiki at least the base MediaWiki is terrible for that. That's the thing. You can assign roles and give different permissions and set somebody as the author of a post on WordPress, which means that that person is the one who gets all of the emails about any comments to that post. It's really well suited for specific roles with regard to specific pages and different levels of access and ability to approve things and that kind of thing. It's for groups of people collaborating that are in the in the dozens. I think WordPress is a really well proven system for that. And I've never heard of wikis of that scale really being fundamentally well satisfied with the wiki as sort of the basis for that. Wikis thrive when you get into the hundreds of users and the thousands of users. In terms of actively writing things. But there's a learning curve for every single one of those people in terms of figuring out how to get the software to do what you want. And depending on how heavily they've customized that in Blue Spice, maybe that's more of an issue and maybe that's less an issue. And it depends on what level of investment and how much sort of learning, investing in figuring out how to do this you can expect from the users. And maybe they're so invested in this already that that you can get them to all sort of take on learning how to do things in MediaWiki. But then again, maybe not.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to me that they don't have time and they won't take the time. But I was impressed with Blue Spice because they put on an overlay that addressed some of the shortcomings of wikis in terms of commenting and participating in the collaborative process without actually editing.
Okay.
So and they're selling it to businesses. So businesses are full of people who all want to learn how to do Wikipedia editing, and so they've seemed to have made it work. But anyway, Sam didn't like the editor interface, so I found myself wondering: is a wiki the right thing for us? Maybe a content management system. I'll now look at WordPress. I know there are hosting folks who've put together some nice WordPress packages. That might be worth looking at as well. Well, anyway, it's an interesting question, and appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah.
We'll see where we end up then. I'll take a look at some WordPress vendors then, hosting sites.
Cool beans.
All right. Thanks, Age.
Thank you.
Talk to you Monday.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye now.